How's my night dwellers doing? Hello, hello. Welcome, Grims. Super vampire. No. That's not what I want. Chat. Chat. That's it. Hello. How was everyone? You like it? I like it too. Georgia Bell. She's the newest addition. Who's ready for Cherry Hill? Welcome to Twisted Tales Live. Hello. Hello, who's that girl? Oh yes, it will be published soon. Hey Bonnie Lass, hey X, hey Julie, hey Palm, thank you Shirley, hello Kimmy, hello Melanie. It does look gothic, doesn't it? I love it. Hello, hello. You like it, Anna? Good. I'll show the gown here in just a minute. Let's start sharing the line. 5 friends, 10 friends, 15 friends. Hello, Tara. I told y'all that I would be showing full gowns today. Dark navy. There we go. Hello, Tiffany. Hello, lovely. This is navy blue. Yeah, it's navy blue. The newest addition is Georgia Bell. She is Mary Catherine's sister. She's pretty, isn't she? Hello, Sandra. Oh, they're definitely separated. I tried to put the two of them together and that didn't work. A sleeve always wants to fall off. Hello, Georgia Bell. Georgia Bell and Mary Catherine, you're welcome. Oh, definite sibling rivalry, for sure. I can actually see everything in here, and that's pretty incredible. Hello, Peaches. Everybody have a good weekend. Was it relaxing? Thank you, Diana. Hello, Nikki. How are you? Hello, Patricia. I'm going to just tell you, I have been writing on this book all week, and today was Cold Chill Sunday. I was just like, wow, I have to take a break from this. I'm good, Nikki. Hello, Angie. Hello, Rose Jamaican Flower. It is, Sandra. I'm actually inside the castle now. 2 minutes. Hello over there. Thank you, Angie. Did everybody get to see the gown? Oh, you got to see it, Kelly? Okay, cool. 1 minute. Hello, Glamour Fox. If you are just coming in, this is Twisted Tales Live. And tonight is Fiction Night. Tonight is Cherry Hill. Hey, Emma. I'll show the gown again at intermission. Let's test the music. How is the music? Too loud, too low? Everyone let me know. Hello, Mustang Sally. Sounds good. Music is good. Okay. Okay, cool. Wind chimes. dear. I can walk around. I can breathe. I can actually breathe in here. Thank you, thank you. Welcome to Twisted Tales Live. I'm your host, Bryn Morgan. I'm also a horror author and a lover and teller of scary stories. Tonight I am continuing my work, Cherry Hill. I think Cherry Hill is gaining in popularity. Cherry Hill, a story of a woman, Maggie Drake, who has seemingly had the worst time of her life. First an attack, then her husband cheating, then leaving her, then attempting to try to take their daughter, Curly, then almost losing her writing career. Then her mother gets sick. Then she finds out it's not her mother. Her birth mother is from a place called Cherry Hill, North Carolina. Cherry Hill. Sounds quaint, doesn't it? But it's not. Tonight we continue the story of Cherry Hill. When last we left Cherry Hill, Maggie was beginning to learn some things. She found an old medallion necklace that her mother, Aileen McLeod, used to wear. And the moment that she put it on her body, she felt a slow burn, a glow. She went to a store to a lady that she had met by the name of Chloe. And Chloe invited her to the circle. Are you ready to find out what the circle is? Then say, Bryn, I'm ready. Let's go. Very well. You know how we start, though. Lower your lights. Lock your doors. Light a candle for ambiance, or to chase the shadows away. Pull your curtains nice and tight. Wrap yourself in your warmest blanket to avoid the chills that are about to crawl up your spine. And let's begin. The house was quiet, except for the sound of the storm, still dripping from the eaves, and the distant, deep, insistent cry of her cat, Doom. His low, throaty meows followed Maggie as she crossed the polished floors of Cherry Hill House. And when she stooped to gather the ivory gown from her trunk, he wound himself tightly around her ankles as if to bar her path. Dune, get out of my way. I've got to get ready. His fur was hot and alive against her skin. Each rub of his flank, like a warning, pressed into her bones. Big guy, I've got to go. Dune. He would not leave her. She knelt down and whispered, stroking the ridge of his back. He meowed louder, an almost mournful sound. Tall, tail lashing as though he could feel something she couldn't yet. Maggie bent down and kissed the top of his head and whispered, I'll be back home. I promise. Upstairs, she closed the door behind her and unfastened the black sweaters she had been wearing. The air in her mother's room was cool, scented faintly of lemon oil and aged cedar. She let her hair tumble down, copper-red waves cascading over her shoulders. And when she slipped the ivory gown over her skin, it was like a whisper. Fell all the way to the floor in gentle folds. The fabric moved against her body, soft like river water, clinging in places before falling away in loose, flowing folds. Her fingertips brushed the material, and it was cool to the touch. But where it lay against her chest, it seemed to warm almost instantly, as if her body and the gown recognized one another. It smelled faintly of dried lavender and sandalwood from Chloe's shop, earthy and clean. And when she walked across the floor, the hem trailed like smoke, gliding with her rather than resisting. She caught sight of herself in the mirror, her hair unbound, the ivory fabric clinging and flowing to every curve of her body, the medallion hanging heavy and dark against the pale fabric. The strange script seemed to shimmer in the lamplight. She reached out, clasped the cool silver, and closed her eyes. She raised it and held it to her nose. The weight of the medallion pressed into her palm and resting against her face was grounding and electric all at once. For a moment, she thought she heard it again, that whisper. It rattled against the walls of her chest. She drew a deep breath and released it slowly and murmured, Okay, I'm ready. Let's find out what this circle is about. Downstairs, Dune was waiting at the door, pacing back and forth, his golden fur catching glimmers of moonlight through the window panes. When she opened the door to leave, he darted forward as if to follow, but she pulled it quickly behind her. Then it clicked. The instant the latch clicked, his cries grew louder, muffled but desperate, echoing even as she walked across the porch. It clawed at her heart, but she forced herself into the Bronco that Graham had lent her, slid the key into the ignition, and started down the mountain road. The night was alive. Above her, the hunter's moon rose enormous, an amber gold, heavy in the sky like a harvest lantern. It bled light across the ridgeline, silvering the skeletal arms of trees that reached skyward like petitioners. Clouds stripped it in thin veils, but the moon pushed through, too powerful to be hidden. Every hollow in the landscape gleamed with its glow. As Maggie drove, the forest closed in on either side, tall pines rising like pillars in some dark cathedral. Shadows raced across her windshield, branches bending in the night wind, and the sound of the Bronco's tires crunching gravel was swallowed by the soft symphony of owls, crickets, and the distant rush of water somewhere in the valley. The scent of wet leaves and earth filled the cabin of the vehicle when she cracked the window, grounding her in the damp breath of the mountain. She glanced at the rearview mirror once, and for just the briefest instant, thought she saw another pair of lights following her. But when she blinked, they were gone, leaving only the swath of silver road stretched like a ribbon under the moon. At last, the road smoothed and widened as she descended into town. Cherry Hill Square, quiet by day, seemed otherworldly now. Every window glowed faintly, but the shutters were closed, and the town's old bricks held the moonlight in their worn surfaces. A hush clung to the place, as if the hunter's moon had bewitched even the stones. Maggie parked the Bronco in front of Chloe's shop. Its painted windows glowed warmly against the night, golden lamplight spilling over racks of flowing garments, bright scarves, and the odd shimmer of candle votives. Maggie's throat tightened. She pressed her palm once more to the medallion at her breast, feeling the steady thrum beneath her fingerprints, and whispered, almost to herself, Aileen, I hope this is the right choice. When she stepped out of the Bronco, the air met her like a cold hand on the face, damp, tinged with wood smoke and sharpened by the metallic edge of the moon's light. Her gown stirred around her legs in the breeze, and she smoothed it down with trembling fingers before pulling the shop door open. The bell above chimed softly. Inside the shop seemed transformed from daytime whimsy into something deeper, almost ritualistic. The air was thick with incense, sandalwood, patchouli, and sage, with undertones of something resonant and dark. Perhaps frankincense? Candles glowed in every corner, their flames bowing toward the door as if greeting her. The silks and scarves, the beads and the bracelets seemed to shimmer with more than reflected light. Chloe appeared from behind a curtain at the back. Her golden brown hair was pinned loosely, her dress a deep forest green that pulled around her like moss. She smiled warmly, though her gaze immediately flicked downward to the metallic glinting at Maggie's chest. Maggie, she said softly, her voice carrying the cadence of welcome and promise. Perfect. You're right on time. Just hang tight. I'm just going to change into something more comfortable. I'll be right with you. Maggie's heart hammered. The hunter's moon loomed beyond the window, great and golden, a watchful eye over Cherry Hill. Maggie walked over to the window. The hunter's moon hung like a pale fire over the town square. When Maggie pulled the Bronco into its space before Chloe's shop, she had noticed that. Now she looked out the shop's windows, and the light from the moon felt alive, like it was pushing through the glass to her somehow. She could still hear Dune's plaintive meows in her head, his paws scrabbling against the door as she'd left him, like he wanted to go with her. But why? It had been almost human, the way he begged her not to go. Maggie wrapped her arms around herself then, trying to shake off the chill that had followed her all the way down the mountain. As she was looking at a row of candles on a shelf, the bell above the shop door gave a sharp, brittle chime. She didn't look. Chloe hollowed from the back. Maggie, did you bring a jacket? Maggie shook her head, suddenly self-conscious. She was freezing. No, I didn't. I'll take care of it. Maggie turned in a slow circle. Chloe hollered back out, I've got just the thing for you. She vanished again into the back. Maggie took in the shop's familiar scents and textures. She reached out, brushing her fingers over a rack of scarves, cool silk, rough wool, smooth velvet. The fabric whispered beneath her touch, but her nerves kept humming. She wasn't sure why. Then it came, the sharp jangle of the door's bell. Maggie froze. She turned. 3 women stepped inside, and the air changed with them. It grew heavier, darker, charged as though the storm from the night before had followed them in. They were beautiful, yes, but not in any soft or welcoming way. Their beauty was carved, sharp, severe, untouchable. Each wore a long black gown that seemed to drink the light, and their hair gleamed, ink dark, moon silver, raven's wing. Their presence filled the small shop, pushing against Maggie's lungs, making her chest tighten. The tallest one at the front smiled, slow and deliberate, her eyes like dark glass. Maggie's breath hitched as that smile cut straight through her. Chloe's voice floated from the back. I'm sorry, we're closed. You'll have to come back in the morning. Silence answered. The tallest woman stepped forward, her heels clicking against the wooden floor. The air around her smelled faintly of iron and moss, as if she had walked in straight from the depths of the Black Ridge. Her voice was velvet and still, all at once. Closed. She turned to her companions. She's closed. She smiled again. Perhaps you would reconsider for us. Maggie's heart thudded hard. She gripped her medallion through her gown. The metal began warming instantly against her palm. The woman's smile widened as if she knew. She inclined her head, raven dark hair sliding like water. I'm Anaya, she said. Her voice called around Maggie's name in her mind, though she hadn't spoken it. Maggie, did they leave? No, Chloe, we did not. A second woman, slightly shorter but with eyes like storms and cheekbones like carved marble, drifted forward. She lifted her hand slowly, and Maggie noticed her nails, long, black, sharp. Her voice was low and smoky. I'm Rowena. You'll remember my name. The third lingered in the doorway, her lips painted a deep wine red, her eyes glittering like shards of obsidian. Her voice was a melody, honeyed, but poisonous, meant to sink beneath the skin. I'm Karis. And you are? The three of them looked at Maggie as though she were something rare, something precious, something doomed. Chloe stepped out from the back bin, her white cloak trailing, her eyes narrowed. The glow around her seemed sharper now, defiant, as though she herself was light thrown against the darkness that had just entered. I told you to leave. Her voice was even deeper than usual. Chloe was dressed head to foot in winter white. Her gown was white, her cloak was white. Her voice was firm and clipped. You weren't invited. You can come back tomorrow morning, just like everyone else does. Anaya tilted her head, her smile never faltering. And yet, here we are. She began to look around her. The shop fell into silence, save for the faint crackle of candle flames. Maggie's breath echoed loud in her ears. She could taste something metallic on her tongue, as if lightning were about to strike. For the first time since coming to Cherry Hill, she understood. This wasn't the circle she thought she'd been invited to. This was something else. This was something dangerous, something ancient. She didn't like it. And caught between Chloe's otherworldly glow and the three women's shadowed beauty, Maggie felt the medallion thrum against her chest, hotter, louder, like a warning, or like a summons. The bell's chime had barely faded when the three women glided even further into the shop. Their gowns whispered against the floorboards, the black fabric drinking in every drop of lamplight until the corners of the shop seemed darker, heavier. Maggie pressed her fingers against the edge of a nearby display, trying to ground herself, though even the polished wood felt slick with her own nervous sweat. Chloe's voice was sharp and clipped again. I said we're closed. Won't you make an exception? Please. Maggie felt it then, that shift in the air, as though every candle flame in the store quivered at once, as if the entire shop were holding its breath. Chloe's voice cut through the charged silence, flat and steady. We're closed. The women did not turn to leave, however. Instead, they drifted deeper into the shop, their shadows long and liquid on the floor. The tallest one, Anaya, extended her hand as she passed a shelf lined with glass jars of dried herbs and oils. She swept every candle off into the floor, the glass shattering. Do I need to call the police? The police? Why would you call them? Her fingers were pale and elegant, tipped in lacquered black nails. She brushed another shelf, larger candles, and knocked them off into the floor too. You are damaging my property. Her nails clicked faintly like the sound of beetle shells against glass. We're damaging your property. Her eyes flicked to Chloe, glimmering with a dangerous amusement. We were hoping, Anaya said softly, that you might sell us some of those tall black pillared candles. She let the words linger, almost caressing them. We need them for tonight. Mother wants a full box. Maggie's pulse leapt at the phrasing. For tonight. The hunter's moon was overhead. Every nerve in her body told her this request was no simple errand. Chloe stepped forward from the back, her white cloak shifting like frost in the dim shop. Her jaw was tight, her eyes unwavering. "We sold out of those," she said firmly, "but I can order more so you have them next time." The other two women exchanged a look, sharp, silent, loaded. Then all three turned their eyes on Chloe, and the weight of their combined gaze made the room feel smaller, tighter, as though the walls themselves leaned inward. Their smirks were faint, but they carried a blade's edge. Anaya lifted a finger. "You do that." Maggie stood off to the side, her medallion warm against her skin, her hands fidgeting with the folds of her gown. She wished she could vanish into the shadows between the racks of scarves and jewelry. And then Anaya's eyes found her. They landed with a force that felt physical, pinning Maggie in place. Anaya's lips curved, slow and deliberate, as she drifted toward her. "And who might you be?" Maggie swallowed, her throat dry. She wanted to answer, but Chloe's voice broke through first, sharper and louder. "I'm asking you to leave." Anaya didn't break her stride. She smirked at Chloe, a smile without warmth, and continued forward. Maggie instinctively stepped back, bumping into a rack of flowing shawls. The fabric swayed against her arms, whispering like ghostly fingers. Anaya raised her hand. Long, black polished nails caught the lamplight, gleaming like obsidian claws. Her voice was softer now, intimate, predatory. She took a finger and placed it beneath Maggie's chin. "I asked your name." Chloe's tone lashed out, urgent. "Don't!" But Maggie had already spoken. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "My name is Maggie. Maggie Drake." The name seemed to strike some hidden chord inside Anaya. She repeated it once, then again, each time louder, stranger, as though tasting it, testing its edges. "Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake." Her eyes rolled back in her head. "Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake." "No. No, you're not Maggie Drake." Her voice slipped into a rhythm, almost a chant. Her pupils swelled until her blue eyes looked nearly black, and her head tilted back ever so slightly as though she were in some trance. "Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake, Maggie Drake." The repetition filled the shop, each echo crawling up Maggie's spine like ice water. Maggie's breath hitched. She wanted to move, but her body wouldn't listen. Then Anaya slowed. Her gaze dropped back to Maggie, and when she spoke again, her voice was low and final. "You lie. Maggie Drake is not your name." Her lips curled, and her eyes, now pools of inky black, fixed on Maggie. "No, that's not your name." "Tell me your name." It was as if she was casting a spell. The words sank into the room like stones into still water, rippling through the air, bending the silence around them. Maggie's chest tightened. She clutched the medallion against her skin, and it burned so hot she nearly gasped aloud. For the first time since stepping into Chloe's shop, she wondered if she had walked straight into a trap. The words still echoed in the air. "No. That's not your name. Maggie stood rooted to the floor, the medallion branding her chest with its heat, burning her skin. Anaya's black eyes bore into her, widening, pulling as though she could peel back Maggie's very skin and see what lived underneath. Maggie wanted to turn, to run, to vanish into the storm outside, but she couldn't move. The silence was broken only by the low hum of the overhead lights and the faint, eerie clatter of bead curtains swaying in the draft. Somewhere close, Maggie could smell the acrid tang of extinguished incense, mixing with the earthy perfume of sage and wax. It choked her, heavy in her lungs. And then out of nowhere, as if floating, Chloe moved across the store. She swept across the floor in a flash of white, her cloak flaring, and came to stand directly between Maggie and Anaya. Her posture was taut, commanding, her shoulders squared, her chin lifted in a way that Maggie had never seen. In that instant, she didn't look like a shopkeeper. She looked like a shield. Her voice cut through the thick air, firm and edged with warning. That's enough! Anaya's lips twitched, but she didn't step back. She leaned to one side, her gaze sliding past Chloe, lingering on Maggie with a hunger that made Maggie's stomach drop. Protecting her, are we? Anaya's voice was soft, lilting, almost playful, but the undertone was sharp enough to draw blood. Chloe shifted her stance, blocking every angle of view. Her white cloak caught the lamplight, throwing a soft glow into the room, a defiant counter to the shadows that clung to the other women. I'm only going to say this once more. You need to leave. Now. From behind Anaya, the second woman, Rowena, let out a low chuckle. The sound was like smoke, curling and evasive. My, how fierce. She's not very welcoming, is she? She tilted her head, silver hair gleaming as it caught the moonlight through the window. I don't recall you ever slamming the door in our faces before, Chloe. The third, Karis, closed the door behind them with a slow kick, sealing the room. Maggie's heart slammed against her ribs at the sound. They were trapped. Anaya smiled then, wide and sharp. We were only shopping, she said, her voice dripping with mock innocence. She reached toward a shelf, dragging one black nail across the surface of a thick black candle. Since you don't have a whole box, I'll take this one for free. But your little guest, she tipped her head. She's very interesting. I can't quite read her yet, but I will. Maggie flinched when those dark eyes flicked to her again. The medallion under her palm thrummed like a heartbeat as though it recognized the threat and answered in kind. She told you. Her name is Maggie Drake, Chloe said sharply, her voice rising, each word crisp and final. And she is under my protection. You can't touch her. The air grew colder. Maggie swore she could see her own breath. Anaya laughed once, a sound low and strange. And it reverberated in the shop's narrow walls. She leaned close enough that Chloe had to tilt her chin up to hold her gaze. Protection, she whispered. You think you can keep what isn't yours? I already know a lot. I just can't fully read her yet, but I will. Chloe didn't flinch. Her voice dropped hard and flat. Leave. The two other women shifted, their gowns whispering across the floorboards. Rowena's hand brushed a row of crystal pendants, knocking them off their hooks, each one trembling on its chain. as if caught in a sudden wind. They did a lot of damage. Karis lingered by the door, her dark eyes gleaming and unreadable. Anaya stared at Chloe for a long moment, then she smiled again, this time small and cruel, and bowed her head slightly. As you wish. She stepped back, the weight of her gaze lingering on Maggie until the very last second. Then with a slow, deliberate turn, she moved toward the door. Rowena followed, her laugh still curling in the air. Karis opened the door, letting in a gust of cold night air. The hunter's moon glowed behind them like a watching eye. Anaya paused in the doorway and looked over her shoulder. Her voice came low and even, like a promise. Your lack of hospitality will be answered. This isn't over. The three women slipped into the night, the bell above the door jingling once, sharp as a blade. The silence that followed was suffocating. Maggie's knees nearly buckled with the release of tension. She clutched the medallion tighter, its heat buzzing against her palm, her breath ragged. Chloe turned back to her slowly. Are you okay? Her eyes were darker than Maggie had ever seen them. The calm shopkeeper was gone, and in her place stood someone fierce, dangerous, protective. They can never know who you are, Chloe whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. Not yet. God help me, not yet. The bell's echo was still quivering in the air when Chloe turned, her face pale, her eyes shadowed with something Maggie couldn't read. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the hammering of Maggie's pulse in her ears, and the faint drip, the drip of wax sliding down half-burnt candles on the floor and on the counter. Let's hurry up and blow out these counters. We're going to be late. They can never know who you are. Chloe whispered so low it was almost swallowed by the silence. Maggie blinked, blowing out a candle, her hand tightening around the medallion at her chest. What did you say? She asked, her voice raw, the words pushed out before she could stop them. Chloe's head snapped up. Her whole demeanor was different. It was as if she was on guard, her cloak whispering around her as she moved. We have to go, she said sharply, dismissing the question as though it had never been asked. Her tone brooked no room for argument. Maggie's mouth went dry. The hunter's moon spilled its light through the shop's front windows, silver and cold, painting everything in stark shadow. The shelves looked taller, the jewelry darker, the mannequins like silent centennials watching her. She tried to find her voice, tried to press her question again, but Chloe was already moving. From the back, she produced another cloak, almost identical to her own, white, hooded, its fabric soft and luminous, as though it had been spun from mist. She held it out, her eyes steady, her movements quick and practiced. Put this on, Chloe said. Where we're going, you will feel a chill. This will keep it out. Maggie reached for it almost without thought. The material slid across her fingers, cool and smooth, smelling faintly of lavender and something more elusive. Ozone, like the air before lightning. She hesitated, the weight of Chloe's urgency pressing down on her. Why? Maggie asked, though her voice was barely more than a whisper. Chloe's gaze sharpened. You're asking too many questions at the wrong time, because the night is colder than it looks, Maggie. What you just encountered, be lucky you're walking out of here alive. Now let's go. Her words weren't just about the weather. Maggie could feel it layer beneath it. A warning, a truth wrapped in silk. What she had just said scared her. Still trembling, Maggie draped the cloak over her shoulders. The fabric seemed to mold to her instantly, settling around her like it had been waiting for her all along. The silver clasp glinted in the candlelight as Chloe fastened it at her throat. There. The warmth was immediate. It was the simple warmth of wool or fleece. It pulsed like a second heartbeat, thrumming softly against her skin. The sensation curled upward along her spine, banishing some of the cold sweat that had clung there since Anaya's eyes had met hers. Maggie swallowed, staring down at the hem of the cloak brushing against her ivory gown. She wanted to demand answers, to ask Chloe what those women had meant, and why did they want to know her name so badly, and what she herself had meant with her whispered words. They can't ever know about you, at least not yet, but the look in Chloe's face stopped her. Her eyes, usually open and kind, now held something fierce, something protective, but also secretive. A woman who knew more than she would say. Maggie took a slow, shaky breath. The air in the shop seemed clearer now, though her chest still burned with the aftershock of fear. All right, I'm not asking any more questions. Good. Now we've got to go or we're going to be late. Chloe exhaled, relieved, though her jaw remained taut. She turned toward the door, her cloak billowing, the moonlight pooling like silver fire beyond the glass. Then come, you can ride with me. It's almost time. Maggie glanced once at the shelves, at the places where Anaya's fingers and the girls had destroyed no telling how much in merchandise. Then a shiver ran through her. She pulled the hood up over her hair, its shadows settling across her face like a veil. The medallion burned against her skin as though in an agreement or in warning. And together, cloaked in white, they stepped out into the night. The tires hummed against the asphalt, a steady drone that seemed to grow louder the further Chloe drove. Maggie sat in the passenger seat, her hands knotted together in the lap beneath the folds of the white cloak. The hem brushed against her bare ankles, soft and cool, but the fabric might as well have been chains for how trapped she felt in the moment. I can help you clean that up when we get back. That's terrible what they did. Are you going to call the police? Chloe just stared straight ahead and drove, thrumming her fingers against the steering wheel. Cherry Hill's familiar lights had long since fallen behind them. Now there was only darkness, stretches of shadow broken by the occasional flash of fence post or the gleam of a ditch filled with rainwater. The roads narrowed, bent, and bent again, curling them deeper and deeper into the countryside, into the valley. The headlights cut tunnels through the night, but beyond that pale reach lay only a blackness that seemed endless. Ever so often Maggie glanced at Chloe. Her profile looked sharper in the dim glow of the dash, her golden brown hair caught between the hood of her cloak, her hands steady on the wheel. She seemed utterly calm and would continue whispering words that were unintelligible to Maggie. She knew these roads like her own veins, but Maggie's stomach cooled tighter with each passing mile. How much further? It seems like we've been driving forever. She asked at last, her voice too loud in the hushed car. Chloe didn't answer right away. Her gaze was fixed ahead, her mouth pressed it to a line. Finally, she said softly and lifted a finger. Not far. Chloe didn't answer right away. Her gaze was fixed ahead. Maggie turned to the window. There was nothing out there. Just black fields, the silhouettes of trees, a landscape swallowed whole by shadow. She pressed her palm to the medallion beneath her cloak, grounding herself in its warmth. And then she saw it. A faint glow on the horizon, small at first, then swelling, pulsing like a beacon. Her breath caught. It wasn't the light of a town or a farmhouse. It was too warm, too alive. Chloe's lips curved slightly, though her eyes never left the road. Welcome, she murmured, to the circle. The Bronco slowed, its headlights sweeping across an old wooden gate. Two women stood in white robes and opened the gates. The hinges groaned. Chloe drove through it, and then drove them across a narrow track that cut through a wide field. The grass bent beneath the tires, wet with dew, glistening like silver under the moonlight. Maggie clutched the edge of her seat as the track opened into a clearing. Her breath hitched at the sight before her. The glow she'd seen on the horizon was a bonfire. No, not just a bonfire, but a living column of flame that roared and twisted into the night sky. Sparks flew upward like 1,000 fireflies, vanishing into the heavens, and above it, suspended in all its orange and gold brilliance, hung the moon. But not just any moon. It was the hunter's moon. Its light, not white, but gold. It loomed low and immense, the air around it shimmering with its radiance. The light it shed was not gentle. It was fierce, bright, primal. It set the flames aglow with a deeper hue, turning the clearing into a cauldron of gold and crimson. Maggie stared, transfixed, until Chloe's voice broke the spell. The hunter's moon, she said, looking up at it. Her voice was reverent. The first full moon after the harvest moon. It has always been the moon of seekers, of those who hunt not for food, Maggie, but for truth, for power. Under its light, the veil between worlds thinned just enough. It sharpens us. It strengthens us. Maggie shivered. The words rang with something ancient, something carved into bone and blood long before either of them had been born. Chloe turned off the ignition at the edge of the clearing. The sound of the engine cutting off left only the crackle of the fire and the whisper of wind through the grass. Maggie's senses flared alive. She could smell the smoke, sweet and resonant, laced with pine. She could feel the warmth of the flames on her skin, even from this distance. She could hear the low murmur of voices, the shuffle of feet across damp earth. When she stepped out of the car, the night air wrapped around her, cool and damp, carrying the metallic tang of burning wood. The grass brushed against her gown as she walked beside Chloe. Her pulse was hammering, her throat dry. At first she thought that they were alone. But then, the figures emerged. They came into view as Maggie's eyes adjusted to the shifting glow of the fire. Dozens of them, cloaked in white, just as she and Chloe were. The hoods masked their faces in shadow, but their movements were unmistakably feminine. The sway of hips, the tilt of chins, the grace in the way they drifted through the clearing. All women. Maggie's breath caught in her chest. The closer they drew, the clearer the details became. The cloaks gleamed like pale fire beneath the moon, rippling with each breeze. The women moved with purpose, circling the great blaze, their hands sometimes lifting toward the sky, sometimes clasping together. And then Maggie's eyes widened further. Among them, she saw faces she knew. Miss McCullum, the kindly innkeeper whose motel had felt like a small refuge in her first uncertain days in Cherry Hill. Her hood was thrown back and the firelight gilded her face, her expression solemn, transformed. And Edie Short, from the bakery across the street, always with flour dusting her apron, her laugh easy and light. She too stood robed in white, her gaze fixed on the fire. her lips moving in silent prayer or chant. Maggie's stomach dropped. She stopped mid-step, staring, her heart pounding in her throat. What was going on? The two older women turned. Recognition flared in their eyes. They saw her. They glanced at Chloe, and their eyes widened. For a moment, it was as if time stretched thin. The fire crackled. The moon burned gold. The wind hissed through the grass. And Maggie felt the weight of dozens of unseen eyes falling on her. "Keep your cloak on, Maggie," Chloe said. She pulled her cloak tighter, her palms damp, her mind racing. This was no simple gathering. This was no circle of women sipping tea beneath the stars. This was something else, something ancient, something powerful. And now, she was standing inside it. The night was alive with murmurs and shifting cloaks, the whisper of women greeting each other as the clearing filled with more cars, more women. The bonfire pulsed and roared, throwing shadows across the grass and igniting the edges of the hunter's moon with an even deeper golden glow. Maggie stood at Chloe's side, her hands buried in the folds of her cloak, her eyes darting from face to face. She couldn't decide if the sight comforted her or terrified her. The figures in white moved with grace, each woman falling into her place around the bonfire as if rehearsed, their hoods lowered. The moonlight gilded their faces in amber and pearl, firelight painting their cheekbones in flickering flame. Some held hands, some bowed their heads. All seemed to know why they were here, except Maggie. Then she noticed them. Two young women, almost identical, were moving slowly down the growing line, their cloaks brushing against the grass. They were beautiful in a way that felt untouchable, like statues stepped down from some ancient temple. Their hair was pale blonde, so light it gleamed white in the moonlight, flowing freely down their backs. They moved with an easy grace, lapping softly to each other as though they'd done this 100 times before. Each woman carried a shallow copper gold bowl between them. In the firelight, the liquid inside glowed with a strange, luminous quality. Maggie couldn't tell if it was paint or oil, but when their fingers dipped in and came out again, she swore she saw it shimmer, an eerie greenish blue light that clung to their fingertips like embers that refused to burn out. One by one, they touched the women waiting in line. Their glowing fingers pressed to foreheads, drawing crescent moons. They swept beneath cheekbones with delicate care, leaving behind faint half arcs of light that caught the fire's reflection. Then, with precision, they placed a single dot upon each woman's chin. The effect was mesmerizing and beautiful. Under the hunter's moon, the women transformed into living constellations of blues and greens. Their faces gleamed with moon marks, their expressions serene. Maggie's breath caught as she watched the ritual spread across the line like stars being kindled one by one. The two blondes moved closer, their voices hushed as they murmured kind reassurances to women. Maggie realized then that one of them carried something more than ethereal beauty. She was visibly pregnant, her belly rounding beneath her white cloak. Yet the woman radiated calm, her face aglow with life, her laughter softer, deeper, as though touched by something sacred. They reached Chloe first. One dipped her fingers, let the strange light drip once, then pressed it firmly against Chloe's forehead, creating a crescent moon. A glowing crescent moon appeared luminous against her pale skin. With a sweep, marks were placed beneath her cheekbones, glowing like wings, and then a dot on her chin, final and grounding. Maggie stared, her pulse loud in her ears. Chloe looked otherworldly now, the marks transfiguring her face into something ancient, powerful. She lowered her chin, thanked the women softly, and then turned to Maggie. Their eyes met. No, it's all right. I don't need it. Chloe gave a single nod. It's all right, Maggie, she said quietly, the words carrying both permission and command. Maggie's heart thudded. She barely had time to protest before the young women's glowing fingers were already rising. Cool fingertips brushed her forehead, leaving behind a crescent that tingled against her skin. Maggie inhaled sharply at the sensation, not just cool, but charged, as if the mark had weight. The strokes beneath her cheekbones hummed with the same strange energy, as though the light itself had seeped into her skin. When the dot was placed upon her chin, she felt a subtle pulse, a rhythm that seemed to match the thrumming of the medallion beneath her cloak. Maggie exhaled, dizzy. She whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure why. The two women smiled warmly, almost maternally, and drifted on down the line, leaving glowing constellations in their wake. By now, the clearing was nearly full. Maggie turned in a slow circle, her eyes wide. It was a massive gathering. The women had gathered closer to the fire, their moon-marked faces gleaming like spirits reborn in flame. The pregnant one's laughter carried through the air like chimes, sweet and strange, against the roar of the fire. Dozens of women, all cloaked in white, all marked beneath the hunter's moon. Maggie clutched her medallion. She still didn't know why they were doing this, but she knew that she was about to find out. And the weight of that knowledge pressed down on her as the fire crackled, sparks soaring skyward as if the night itself were listening. The fire roared higher, its voice cracking like a living beast, sending a spray of sparks skyward. The hunter's moon hung heavy above it, a great disk of molten gold, suspended low over the ridge. The light poured down like a river, gilding the clearing, igniting every cloak, every face, every breath in fire and honey. Maggie's throat was dry. She couldn't take her eyes from the sea of women gathered around her, cloaked in white. Every single one bore the glowing crescent on her forehead, the twin strokes beneath her cheekbones, the dot on her chin. In the firelight, they shimmered faintly, but now as the circle quieted and Chloe mounted the small platform, their marks began to glow. Not faintly, not as a trick of firelight. They pulsed, luminous, as though each face was lit from within. Greens, blues, golds flickered through the marks, a constellation of burning stars etched upon their skin. Maggie's breath hitched, her own crescent tingling, and then searing until it felt like hot wax against her flesh. Chloe lifted her arms, her cloak spread wide, the silver clasp at her throat catching the moonlight until it blazed. Her voice rose, not English, not anything Maggie recognized, rounded syllables, long vowels, harsh consonants that rasped like wind against stone. It was old, older than the hills. The women around the fire answered, their voices joining, swelling, becoming a great undulating wave of sound. Maggie clutched the medallion at her chest. It was burning her, pressing heat deep into her sternum as if it wanted to melt into her body. Her bracelets lit up one by one, the amethyst flaring violet, the citrine glowing amber, the turquoise shining blue-white. Her whole arm shimmered like a living torch. Her ears buzzed, the language bent, twisted, reshaped itself in her mind. Suddenly, she could understand every word. We come here tonight, sisters. We come here tonight. Moon of the hunt, moon of the gold, keepers of secrets the shadows hold. Shield our daughters, guard our sons, till the darkened season passes, till the dawn has come. Hunter's moon, blaze in the sky, hear our voices, hear our cry. Bind the black past, seal it tight, cloak the children in your light. Their voices thundered together, each word striking the air like a hammer. The flames surged higher, the wind spinning sparks into whirling galaxies. Maggie's eyes watered from the heat, but she couldn't look away. Chloe then turned to the west. The rhythm shifted. It slowed, deepened, became a heartbeat that shook the earth beneath her feet. No shadow shall take them, the women repeated. No shadow shall take them. No night shall break them. By fire, by blood, by stone, by bone, we cast the black past down. We cast the black past down. We cast the black past down. 3 times they repeated it. By the third, Maggie swore the ground trembled beneath them, a deep vibration coursing up her legs. The black ridge in the distance seemed darker, heavier, as though the words themselves pressed against it. Chloe then turned to the east. Then the women's voices softened, rippling like a lullaby across the clearing. It was beautiful, haunting, like 1,000 mothers singing one song. We are the circle bound in flame. 1,000 mothers speak one name. The children lost, the children gone. We call them back with Hunter's song. Cloak of white, shield of gold, guard them now from hands too bold. Hunter's moon, so fierce, so high, strike the darkness from the sky. Tears stung Maggie's eyes, though why she didn't understand, but she was crying. She pressed her fist to her mouth to keep from crying aloud. She wanted to. She wanted to cry aloud. Their voices wrapped around her like arms, like a memory she couldn't place. Her crescent burned hotter, the dot at her chin sparking as though it had a life of its own. Chloe then turned to the north. The song of comfort cracked into something fiercer. Their voices dropped low and harsh, primal. Some stamped their feet in rhythm, and the earth seemed to shudder. Hills that hunger, hills that take, hear the vow this circle makes. You shall not have them, flesh nor bone. By our blood we claim our own. Hunter's moon, blade of fire, cut the cord of dark desire. Hills that hunger, hills that take, break, black, black pass, break. The fire leapt so violently Maggie had to shield her face, heat searing against her skin. Sparks rolled high, twisting into the golden light of the moon, and the women's marks glowed brighter still, faces alive with furious power. And then Chloe turned to the south. This time, Chloe raised her arms higher, her voice lifting above all others. Her face was radiant, her marks blazing brighter than the rest, her eyes reflecting fire and moonlight until they seemed not human at all. Her voice rang like a bell. Light of gold, light of flame, call the children by their names. Guard their breath, protect their soul. Keep them safe, keep them whole. Hunter's moon, shield above, wrap them in a mother's love. All the women in the circle repeated, wrap them in their mother's love. Drive the shadows, pierce the veil. Let no child of Cherry Hill fail. This time every woman shouted with her. The cloud was deafening, rattling Maggie's bones, shaking the clearing as though the earth itself answered. Her medallion blazed against her skin, scalding hot. Her bracelets pulsed light into her veins. She felt as though she were being split open, filled with the same fire that poured from the women's voices. And as she staggered, as tears streaked down her cheeks, she realized with a shock that she too was speaking the words, her lips moving, the chant pouring from her throat, not in English, but in that same ancient language. She did not know it, and yet she spoke it. How was that possible? The circle roared on. The hunter's moon burned overhead. The bonfire climbed toward the sky like a living tower of flame, and they began to dance. And Maggie Drake, her medallion burning, her marks blazing, understood for the first time that she was no guest here. She was part of this. Let's take a 10-minute intermission. When I come back, I will continue reading Cherry Hill. I hope you're enjoying it. For those of you who did not get to see the gown, this is the gown. It is navy blue and it just sparkles beautifully. It is a gorgeous gown. It has a corset in the back, and it's just lovely. Love this one. Navy blue. Hey, Citrine. So what did you think of the circle? Hello everyone. Hello Mary. Did you feel the magic? Good, 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 good. It was so funny because when I was, hold on one second. Oh, hello there, Citrine. What? Come here. Come here. Come here, baby. Come here. What? What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? It's okay. Yeah, you don't know what to do having this big room, do you? She came in, she was looking for me. So everyone that doesn't know, this is Citrine, and she's a little devil. No, don't chew my nails. No, don't do that. Stop. She listens really well too. All right, you be a good girl. You be a good girl. Mwah. Do you like this? Can you say hi? Can you say hi? All right, enough. Did you see her biting my nails? I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was so funny, Bonnie Lass. So when I had been thinking about the circle all week, and I knew that it was going to be powerful, and so I've been doing a lot of reading on Druid witches and the ceremonies that they have, and one of the most powerful moons that they really like to clear themselves and gain power is a hunter's moon. And so I was thinking about it, and I said, what could I add to it that would be more magical? And then I just had this vision of these beautiful, ethereal witches with these small copper pots, and there's luminescent glowing coming out of the pots, and then every woman being marked with a half moon under the chin, on the cheeks, and I could see it just as easily as anything. The bonfire, I wanted something that was beyond just a bonfire. I wanted something that was huge and had magical components all on its own. So that was the reason I was talking about, the sparks from the fire flying up and creating their own galaxies. I wanted it to be something so powerful, and I wanted to put you there in the moment. No, you're not jumping back up here. She is something else. Most definitely. And what do you think about the three who came in the shop? Anaya, Rowena, and Karis. Did you ever think that Miss McCullum was going to end up as a witch? Miss McCullum ended up being in the circle. Miss Edie ended up being in the circle. Yeah, exactly, Alabama. You had a feeling about it, Melanie? About Miss McCullum? Has it been 10? I don't even know. I need to start doing a timer. Oh, holy cow. Wow. I might be Anaya. Wow. Yeah, I love this. I almost don't know what to do with all this big space. I'm having to learn in it. I'm having to learn it. I'm having to learn lighting and everything. So we're good to go. This is my lighting. Wow. Wow. Can y'all see me good enough? Because I know that TT said something about lighting. So I want to make sure that you can see me good enough. Okay, cool. Okay, because the other was so bright, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna have a really bad headache in the morning. All right. Let's go for it then. The fire was dying down, collapsing into a bed of glowing embers. The golden hunter's moon still loomed overhead, but its brilliance seemed less violent now. As though satisfied with what had been given, women began to slip away, one by one, their white cloaks stirring like ghostly wings in the night breeze. Some hugged, some lingered in whispers, but most carried a silence on their faces, as if the chanting had drained them to the bone. Maggie stood still, her own crescent still tingling faintly, her medallion burning hot as though it held the last spark of the bonfire inside it. She hadn't spoken since the final chant broke apart into nothingness. Her throat was thick with unspoken words, but her mind felt like a locked chest, every question rattling around, none of them able to escape. Come. Chloe's voice was low, almost careful. She placed a hand lightly on Maggie's elbow, guiding her away from the circle, away from the glowing embers. They walked back across the gates and the grass. The night was cool now, though the warmth of the fire still clung faintly to Maggie's skin. Crickets sang loud in the weeds, an almost jarring reminder that the world had gone on, uncaring of the magic that had just unfolded. But then Maggie's steps slowed. Ahead, just beyond the line of parked vehicles, she saw a large white van with its back doors flung open. Miss McCullum stood there, her plain face glowing faintly in the moonlight, handing out bottles of water with careful hands. Edie from the bakery was beside her, smiling warmly, as she pressed bottles into the palms of women still dazed from chanting. They worked together like it was second nature, like they had been doing it for years. Maggie said nothing. She only watched, her stomach coiling tighter, a sense of unreality pressing down on her. Miss McCullum, who had offered her tea in kindness, Eddie, who had made pies and cinnamon rolls so sweet they seemed stitched from sunlight, both cloaked in white, both woven into this secret tapestry. Chloe said nothing neither, only steered Maggie away from the van. Her silence was heavy, deliberate. That is how they serve. We don't talk to one another after the circle disperses. Got it. Let's get you back to town. By the time they reached Chloe's car, Maggie felt more questions than answers. She slid into the passenger seat, her fingers clenched around her medallion, the stone against her breastbone still smoldering faintly. Chloe started the engine, the headlights cutting across the empty field, and they drove away in silence. The road stretched out before them, narrow and dark, the moon shadowing every curve. The hum of the engine filled the car, but Maggie heard her own heartbeat louder. Finally, Chloe flicked her eyes sideways, glancing at her. All right, we're on the main road now, she said quietly. I know you have questions, and go ahead. Maggie turned her head, her throat dry. I do have questions. Her voice trembled despite her best effort. What was it? What did I just witness out there? Chloe kept her hand steady on the wheel, her profile cut against the glow of the dashboard. She breathed in once, slow, before she answered. You witnessed the circle, Maggie, she said simply. Then after a pause, we are druids, Maggie. Druid witches. Our line stretches back centuries. Scotland, before the storms were even marked with names. The women you saw, they're either part of that bloodline or they are bound to us in purpose. Tonight was not spectacle. It was a prayer, a wording. Maggie blinked hard, trying to process. A wording? For what? You said protection of the children, protection of Cherry Hill. Chloe's mouth pulled thin. Yes, her voice was steady, but Maggie felt the weight beneath it, like she was speaking a truth so old it hurt to carry. Every full moon, we gather. We call it the Hunter's Light. We weave the chants together like a quilt. We try to shield the children who live in the shadow of the Black Pass. The Black Pass. Maggie's voice cracked on the words. You mean they're taken? Still? Even after everything you do, after that? That was so powerful. For the first time, Chloe's composure faltered. Her knuckles whitened on the wheel. Yes, she said, one word, jagged as a blade. Maggie's chest hollowed. She turned her face toward the window, staring out at the blur of trees rushing by. But how? Why? You prayed with all that power tonight? You shook the earth, Chloe. How could that not stop it? Chloe's silence lasted long enough that Maggie turned her head back, searching her face in the dim light. Finally, Chloe shook her head faintly, her jaw tightening. I don't know if it's fate or if our prayers only delay it. Maybe they weaken the shadows. Maybe they buy time. We've been doing it for generations. Sometimes a child goes missing the next week. Sometimes a year passes before another is taken, but lately it's been about 3 a month. They're hungry. taking more. They're taking them quicker. But always, she swallowed, her voice breaking against the word. They always come, Maggie. Maggie stared at her, her heart beating like a war drum. And you keep doing it anyway? Why would you keep doing that if it's not even working? That seems pointless. Chloe's eyes flicked to her again, softer this time, aching. We do it because we must. Because if we stopped, I fear the Black Past would swallow them all. Maggie turned away again, but not before Chloe's final words pierced her like a veil. She looked at the hunter's moon. It will be soon, Maggie. Very soon now. They will attempt to take another. Was it the women at the shop? Did they do it? The road curved, the moon trailing them gold and watchful in the sky. Maggie clutched her medallion, but it gave her no comfort, only heat, and the cold certainty that she was now part of something she could neither walk away from, nor yet understand. The road back into town was little more than a ribbon of cracked blacktop through endless dark. The hunter's moon followed them like a molten eye, watching the windshield in gold as Chloe drove in silence. Maggie's hands were clenched on her lap, her pulse still wild from the circle, from the chants that were still echoing in their bones. She could feel the words building inside her, all the questions, the fear, the faces of those three dark women in the shop earlier. She stared out at the road, the hedgerows slipping past like black teeth, and then it burst out of her before she could stop it. I asked you a question earlier, and you haven't responded, Chloe. The women, she said suddenly, the women who came into your shop tonight and did all that destruction and threatened me, do they have something to do with this? Chloe's hands tightened on the steering wheel. For a moment, she said nothing. The car hummed along, headlights slicing through fog. Then she glanced at Maggie, her eyes reflecting the dashboard light, but colder, harder than before. Maggie, she said quietly, those women that you encountered are the purest form of evil. They came to threaten me. They don't like the circle. They came to stop me. Maggie swallowed hard, her throat dry. Yes, they come from the Black Pass. Chloe continued, her voice low and urgent. Be wary of them. They now have your scent. And I didn't want that. Be careful in that Cherry Hill house. Be careful up there. You're alone, Maggie. The words settled in the car like a weight. Maggie's stomach churned and turned to ice. She pressed a trembling hand to the medallion at her throat, feeling its heat pulse against her palm. A sharp chime cut through the silence. Maggie jumped, fumbling for her phone. A new text. She swiped it open, expecting maybe Inez or Graham. The screen glowed black. It was a photograph, but almost nothing was in it. Just a wash of darkness with the faintest suggestion of a shape lurking within, like a shoulder, like a head, like a shadow captured mid-breath. There was no caption, no name, nothing but that void staring back at her. Her hands began to shake. Her breath hitched. She knew. She knew it was him. The one who had tried to destroy her life, her attacker, the one she had run from. Chloe's eyes flickered to her. Maggie? Maggie clutched the phone to her chest, her medallion hot as a brand against her skin. Chloe's voice sharpened. Use your power, she said. Use your power now to thwart those dark thoughts that just entered your mind. Maggie turned to her, her eyes wide. Are you a witch? Like a strong witch? Her voice trembled. I told you I was. But you seem... I am the head of the line. Chloe interrupted softly. Her eyes stayed on the road, but her words vibrated like a spell. There has been a lot of darkness in your life, Maggie Drake. A lot of darkness that you have suffered. But you have the power to control it. Control it now. Maggie stood and stared at her. So you know about my mother, Aileen McLeod? Chloe's mouth tightened. Yes. She was a very powerful witch, Maggie. More powerful than you can ever know. More powerful than me. She hesitated, her voice dipping into something like regret. More powerful than you yet understand. You don't understand who Aileen McLeod was. Maggie's fingers dug into the silver filigree of her medallion. The photo on her phone screen went dark as it timed out, but its image burned inside her mind. The car's headlights illuminated the edge of town ahead, but it felt no safer than the road behind. Chloe exhaled slowly. You're in terrible danger, Maggie. But you're not helpless. For the first time, Maggie realized the heat beneath her palm wasn't fear. It was her own power, thrumming through the medallion like a pulse, waiting to be claimed. The car's headlights carved narrow spears through the black country roads. Eventually, she pulled into the spot at the front of the store. Use your power, Maggie. Use it. Maggie turned her head sharply toward her. What power? What power are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. The power of the McLeod line. All I know is that I put on this medallion and it heats up whenever there's danger or something going on. I don't know about my mother. Can you tell me about my mother? No one's been able to tell me about my mother. Chloe's gaze stayed on the wheel, but she nodded once, as if she'd been waiting for the question. You know the power, Maggie, she said. You've been having the dreams, the nightmares. The power of your mother, it runs in your blood. The McLeod line runs through your blood. You don't realize just how powerful you are, Maggie. I wish I could tell you all of it, but I can't. I can't! Maggie's fingers dug into her medallion. Power? Being in danger? Get rid of the darkness? How do I get rid of the darkness, Chloe? You know what? Her voice rose. She was almost shouting. I just want to go home. I want to go back to Cherry Hill, and I need to leave here. Chloe flicked her eyes toward, calm but unyielding. Maggie, you are very powerful. Tell me, when they put the luminescent on your face, was it cooling or did it burn you? It burned me. They sensed it tonight. I sensed it in you the first time I met you. It's as if you knew what stones that you were drawn to. It's why the medallion reacts to you. It's why the marks burned on your skin when we called the chant. What is in you, Maggie? It's not good. Your power is not good. What? I didn't ask for this. Maggie snapped, tears prickling her eyes. I didn't ask for any of this. No one does, Chloe said quietly, but it's there. It's part of your bloodline, it's part of your lineage, and when the time comes, you will need to use it. You need someone to guide you, someone to teach you the right ways, so that when that moment comes and you have to make a decision, and it's not going to be an easy decision, Maggie, you'll be able to drive the darkness out instead of letting it in. The silence between them was thick and electric. If you're open to it, I can teach you some things. But I can't teach it all. In truth, you're more powerful than me. We may come to a head one day. I hope that doesn't happen. It doesn't completely have you yet. Not yet. Are you open to learning and exploring your power? I don't know. You just told me like I'm some freaking wicked witch or something. Her throat felt tight. I just want to go home. Chloe exhaled, eyes forward again. Think about it, Maggie Drake. Think about it before it's too late. Is that why my mother got rid of me? Is that why? You will have to learn that on your own. My offer stands. I can teach you to tap into your power. God help me, I hope I can reverse it. Maggie's knuckles were white around the medallion as she got out of Chloe's car. She said nothing to Chloe. She held on to the medallion for dear life. Maggie gripped the steering wheel of the Bronco as it growled its way back up the dark mountain road. The hunter's moon gleaming coppery gold in the rearview mirror. Her mind replayed Chloe's last words before she stepped out of the car in town. They had been delivered so casually, but the weight of them hit Maggie like ice water. The ones from the Black Pass will stop at nothing, Maggie. They will take and take and take until only the shadows remain. Even your bloodline won't shield you forever. We will destroy them. You mean destroy me? That voice, so calm, so unwavering, slithered through her memory as the road twisted higher. Maggie felt her chest tighten, her medallion pressing warm against her skin. She shivered not from the chill, but from the gravity of what Chloe had left her with. She made her sound like she was evil. Like she was something terrible. At last, Cherry Hill House emerged from the trees, a hulking silhouette doused in total darkness. Then the hunter's moon broke through the shifting clouds, spilling molten light over the roofline, painting the white clapboard in shades of orange fire. For a moment, it looked less like a house and more like an apparition waiting for her. She pulled into the gravel drive, cut the engine, and the silence was crushing. Before she even unlocked the front door, movement stirred, and there was Dune, the massive ginger tabby, waiting as if he'd been listening for her return. He let out a commanding meow and rose on his hind legs, batting softly at her knees until she scooped him up into her arms. Her body was solid and warm, her orange eyes gleaming like embers against the moonlight. She buried her face in his fur, inhaling the faint scent of earth and musk, feeling her panic ebb. Do you think I'm a bad person, Dune? His answer was a soft purr. You keep me sane, she whispered against his ear. You're all I've got. Inside, the house creaked and settled, but for once, Maggie didn't fight it. She locked the doors, pulled the curtains tight, especially in the bathroom, and curled into her bed with Doom pressed against her hip. She wanted to go to the apocryphy room and read her mother's book of Grimoire. Sleep came mercifully heavy, dragging her under, thankfully, without dreams. Morning brought gray light through the curtains and the sound of Dune's rumbling purr as he kneaded the blanket by her side. Maggie fed him first, watching his big orange body curl protectively around her dish, then set about making herself toast and coffee. The bitter, familiar smell was grounding, steadying her nerves after the long night. She just could not get those words out of her head. Chloe's saying that they might end up battling each other. What did all this mean? Then she heard it. Tires on gravel, a heavy vehicle climbing the last stretch of the drive. Her stomach tightened. She set her mug down and moved toward the parlor window, half expecting Graham's bronzed SUV. But no, it was a stark white SUV that eased into the clearing, dust popping up in its wake. On the side, in bold green letters, Cherry Hill County Sheriff. Her heart kicked harder. Why would the sheriff's department be here? The driver's door opened and a tall man stepped out. He adjusted the brim of his dark brown Stetson, his deputy's uniform crisp and pressed, boots crunching over the gravel with the easy weight of authority. Then the passenger door opened, and Maggie froze. Out hopped Kat, the sheriff's daughter from the diner. She carried a small brown grocery bag cradled in her arms, and her eyes darted toward the house with a shy sort of curiosity as she pointed. Maggie's pulse slowed a fraction. Maybe Kat had come to see Dune. The girl had been enchanted with him from the first moment. But still, her nerves buzzed as the deputy's boots drew closer to her front steps. Maggie opened the door. Dune was already weaving around Kat's legs. He remembered her from the diner, his orange tail a banner of delight. Kat crouched with a laugh, pulling bright little toys from the bag. Here you go. Feathers tied to a string, a jingle ball, a mouse stuffed with catnip. Dune nearly bowed her over in his excitement. See, Maggie? Kat's voice was light and bubbling. Told you he needed these. Look how happy he is now. Maggie smiled, the sight warming her heart. He certainly remembers you, doesn't he? The sheriff tipped his hat as his boots met the porch. Miss Drake, he said, his voice deep and steady, touched with a soft southern drawl that sounded older than he was. Figured it was about time I came up here and welcomed Cherry Hill's newest resident. Sheriff, Maggie returned, her pulse tripping without her consent. He looked to be in his late 30s. His uniform fit him neatly. Polished boots and pressed shirt, a dark leather belt at his waist, carrying the weight of his badge. You can call me Dax, he said, extending a hand when she stepped forward. Dax McKenna. His grip was firm but not overwhelming, the kind that spoke of strength held in check. Maggie nodded, realizing she was holding her breath. I'm sorry, my nerves. Long night. Would you... Well, Dax, would you care for a cup of coffee or maybe a cup of tea, if you'd prefer? I'll take you up on that coffee, he said easily. Inside, his presence seemed to fill the halls. Maggie led him into the kitchen, Dune darting ahead with his new mouse clutched in his mouth, while Kat trailed after, grinning. You take it with cream or sugar? Maggie asked as she reached for the mugs. Black. Dax replied. Picked it up in the army. Learn real quick to drink it straight. Makes it easier when you're half a world away and sugar's hard to come by. Maggie glanced at him over his shoulder. The army? Really? My dad? She paused. Still sounded odd. He was her dad. He had raised her. But she had had another dad, a birth dad. She didn't know who that dad was. Yep, I was in the army for 4 years, he said simply, settling into one of the chairs as though it belonged to him. Good years, hard ones too, but they shape you. She placed the steaming mug before him, and when their hands brushed for a moment, she felt a flicker of something unsteady in her chest. She busied herself with her own cup before taking the chair across from him. So, he said, leaning back slightly, his eyes steady on her face. How are you liking Cherry Hill so far? Maggie wrapped her fingers around the mug. I'm adjusting, she admitted. At first it felt too big, too heavy, like I walked into someone else's life. But now I think I'm starting to grow into it. Dax nodded, his gaze thoughtful. This house has been here for as long as I can remember. Takes a strong hand to live in it. You're doing okay up here by yourself? Yeah, I mean, for the most part. His words lingered, though he said them gently. Maggie took a sip of coffee, grounding herself in the taste. And you? How long have you been sheriff here? 5 years. He set his mug down, his fingers loose around it. Sheriff Rayburn had the post for nearly half a century. When he stepped down, I wasn't sure I wanted the badge, but people kept pushing me. But his eyes flickered toward the window where Kat's laughter carried from the porch. After my wife passed, it was just me and her on a little farm down in the valley. Too quiet. Too much time and the wrong kind of silence. This job gave me purpose, something to keep us steady. Maggie's throat tightened at the quiet grief in his tone. I'm sorry, she said softly. He shook his head with grace as though he'd worn those words so often they no longer stung. That girl right there, she's the one who keeps me steady, Miss Drake. Girl's got more fire than I could ever ask for. Maggie smiled faintly, drawn to the gentleness beneath its rugged edges. The two of them fell into a comfortable rhythm. Speaking of small things, the way the town square came alive on Saturdays, the stubbornness of mountain weather, the kind of neighbors who show up at your door with bread before you'd even unpack the suitcase. The clock ticked. The air was filled with coffee and lemon polish, and for the first time in weeks, Maggie felt something like ease. The screen door banged open. Suddenly, Kat's voice carried down the hall. Maggie, Dune looks so happy here. Can I come back and see him? She appeared in the kitchen, cheeks flushed from play, eyes bright with joy. See? I told you he'd love it here. She gave her father a sly smile, then looked straight at Maggie. She's pretty, isn't she, Daddy? I told you. Maggie flushed scarlet, nearly spilling her coffee. Dak's mouth curved into the faintest smile. His storm-colored eyes warm now. Yeah, baby girl, he said, his gaze holding Maggie's. She is. Maggie dropped her eyes quickly, clearing her throat. Kat, would you like some milk? And I've got some scones and muffins left over from the Kerrigan sisters. Yes, please, Kat chimed, settling at the table between them as if she's always belonged there. She was going to grow up and be a beauty. She was only about 14 or 15, Maggie estimated, tall, lanky like her dad, only she had blonde hair. She must have got that trait from her father. The kitchen hummed with warmth and Kat talking brightly about school and the diner, Dune purring against her leg, Dax listening with the patience of a man who knew how to let silence speak as well as words. It wasn't until Kat leaned back in her chair, brushing crumbs from her lap, that she said, It's such a pretty day. Dad and I should show you around a little bit, Maggie. You should know what's up here. Dak's eyes slid toward her, calm but inviting. Kat, Maggie just met us. She doesn't want to go trapezing around Cherry Hill with us. Oh, I bet she does. She's been stuck up here for days, haven't you, Maggie? Dax leaned back in his chair, the brim of his Stetson tilted just enough that Maggie caught the flash of storm blue eyes. He then took off his hat. He had black hair that curled at the neck. He set his mug down gently, the ceramic clinking against the table's polished wood. And Maggie looked at the both of them. Both of their faces were filled with expectation. And in truth, Cherry Hill was the only place she had been, and this house. It might do her good to get out and get some fresh air. Well then, Miss Drake. He drawled, his voice even but edged with something that felt like invitation. What do you say we take a little tour around here? The question lingered between them, soft as a feather and heavy as stone. Maggie's first instinct was to retreat, to fold back into the safety of Cherry Hill House, where the walls, however shadowed, had begun to feel like hers, had begun to feel like home. But when she glanced up, she caught Kat's bright, hopeful expression, her hands clasped around her glass of milk, her foot tapping under the table. Then she looked at Dax. His gaze wasn't pushing, wasn't demanding, but it was steady, expectant, as though he wanted her to see the land through his eyes, to step outside of her guarded solitude. For a moment, Maggie let herself imagine saying no. She would just go about her day. She would go to the apocryphy room. She would read her mother's Book of Grimoire. But that could wait. That could wait till the night. And then quietly, almost surprising, she heard her own voice. Sure, she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. I think I'd like that. I'll go change my clothes. I'll be right back. Kat nearly clapped her hands, her face lighting with delight. See, Daddy? I told you she would. Dune, as if echoing Kat's excitement, leapt onto the bench, his tail curling high like an exclamation point before bounding back down again. Dax rose slowly, his boots scuffing against the floor, and tipped his hat toward her. Good. Then it's settled. We'll be outside waiting in my SUV. Maggie hurriedly dressed in a pair of jeans, a red t-shirt with a V-neck, and a black jacket. She put on tennis shoes. The road wound higher into the mountains, gravel splitting beneath the tires of Dak's SUV. Maggie sat in the passenger seat, her window cracked just enough to let the sharp mountain air curl against her cheek. Beside her, Kat leaned forward from the back seat, practically bubbling with excitement. Daddy, let's show her the black veil, Kat said, tugging at Dak's sleeve. Maggie glanced back with a smile. The black veil? You'll see, Kat grinned, clutching her phone like it was a treasure map. When they finally pulled off the road and into a parking lot, the sound reached Maggie first. A low, steady roar like 1,000 whispers tumbling over stone. They hiked the short trail, dew-wet leaves brushing against Maggie's jeans, and then it opened before her. The waterfall. The most beautiful waterfall. It thundered down a jagged cliff face of sheer black stone, at least 100 feet in the air, the water cutting a pale silver ribbon as it plunged into the deep pool below. Daddy and I like to come here in the summer, don't we, Daddy? Yep, we sure do. Mist sprayed upward in soft bursts, catching the sunlight in prisms of color, while the rocks themselves gleamed slick and dark as though painted in obsidian. Maggie inhaled deeply. The air here was different. Heavier, cleaner, tinged with moss and something metallic that clung to her tongue. She could feel the vibration of the water in her bones. It was almost as if it sang to her. Maggie inhaled deeply. Kat squealed happily, darting closer to the riverbed, snapping photos, crouching low to look for fish. Isn't it beautiful, Maggie? She shouted over the roar. It's incredible, Maggie answered, though her voice barely carried. Dax motioned for her to follow him to a wide, flat rock, a little higher on the hill. From there, the view stretched wide. The fall crashing below, the river curling like a serpent through the gorge. Kat hopping from stone to stone, fearless and light. They sat side by side, close enough that Maggie could feel the warmth radiating from him. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, just layered with the sound of the water. So, Dax said at last, tipping his Stetson back slightly. Cherry Hill House, huh? You're settling in? Think you'll stay a while? Maggie hesitated, folding her hands in her lap. Her fingers played with the chain of her medallion and then stilled. I don't know yet, she admitted softly. Part of me feels at home there, and another part feels like it's too much. He nodded, watching her with eyes the color of deep water. Then his gaze flicked down, sharp and observant. Her hand rested on her lap, pale skin marked by the faint indentation of a ring long since removed. Divorced? He asked, his voice quiet, not probing, just matter of fact, watching Kat. About to be, he asked, his voice quiet, not probing, just matter of fact. Kids? One daughter, Curly. She glanced toward the falls, her jaw tightening. We're in a vicious custody battle right now. Dak's lips pressed into a sympathetic line. Gotcha. I'm sorry to hear that. The word wasn't dismissive, just an acknowledgement, a single bridge across their different lives. He leaned back on his palms, eyes tracking Kat as she crouched by the water, laughing when a spray of mist dotted her hair. Cherry Hill can be healing, Maggie. If you want to be healed. You're strong. I can tell that about you. It takes a certain kind to live in Cherry Hill, though. Maggie met his gaze, surprised at the softness there. She wanted to ask what he meant, why the word certain carried such weight, but Kat's voice floated up to them, bright and insistent. Daddy, look! A rainbow! Right over there in the mist! Dax chuckled, shaking his head. That girl finds light everywhere. Maggie smiled, but inside the question still pressed at her ribs. What did it really take to survive in Cherry Hill? The trail narrowed as it curved deeper into the woods, roots fading across the dirt and moss, climbing up the trunks of ash and maple. Kat was several yards ahead, her voice carrying in little bursts of laughter as she chattered into her phone. Kat! Dax barked suddenly, his voice sharp enough to cut through the stillness. She stopped, shoulders stiffening, and turned her head slightly. It better not be Kate on that phone, he called. I told you, you're not supposed to be talking to him. Kat didn't answer. She just clutched her phone tighter to her ear, muttered something quick, and darted up the path ahead of him, putting more space between them. Dax sighed under his breath, running a hand along the back of his neck. He glanced at Maggie with a faint grimace. She's talking to Kate. Maggie gave a soft, sympathetic chuckle. Uh-oh. That was all it took to crack the tension between them for a heartbeat. But then the air shifted. As the trees thinned, Maggie's eyes caught a splash of red against gray bark. It was a sign. Simple. It said, keep out. The paint had long since bled and cracked, but the words were still legible. Gouged into the wood as though whoever painted them wanted the warning to endure. Another followed not 20 feet ahead, nailed askew onto a crooked fence post. This one said, danger. Maggie slowed, brushing her fingers along the rough edges of the wood as she passed it. There were more signs clustered along a narrow, steep path that curved up to the right. Proceed at your own risk. You've been warned. The colors varied, red, yellow, even black scrawled across whitewashed boards. Some of them had symbols painted beside the words, crooked spirals, jagged X's, and what looked like a crude crescent moon. Hey, Maggie! Yeah? Have you heard about the Appalachian warnings? The rules? Maggie had heard them. Twice. But she decided to let Kat humor her. What are they? Kat walked a little bit up the trail, past the warning signs. Dax looked at her. Come back from there. Come on down here. Don't go up there. If you see something, you didn't. A chill started to fill Maggie. She could still hear the roar of the waterfall, the wind. The very weather began to shift. If you hear something, no, you didn't. Daddy, tell her the next one. Oh, Kat. If you hear someone call your name, no, you didn't. Is that it? Close your curtains. Close them tight. Don't open them until daylight. Daddy, tell her the last one. Ugh. Don't go outside after night. There, we did it. Maggie stared up at the shadowed trail. Kat was back on the phone, but this time with one of her friends. She noticed that the shadowed trail, that its soil was darker than the rest, its mouth framed by twisted branches that arched like claws. The path didn't look inviting. It looked hungry. Obviously, Maggie murdered more than to herself than to him. That doesn't lead any place good. Beside her, Dax had gone very still, his silence pressed down heavier than words could. A lot of people go missing up there. There. Just different things. Maggie turned her head. Her jaw was locked tight, the muscles working. His eyes fixed on the signs, but refusing to linger too long. You don't have to say it, Dax. She added softly, though her chest tightened. I've had 2 people to tell me now to stop asking questions. You don't want me asking either. Dax adjusted the brim of his Stetson, his voice quiet but firm when he finally spoke. I'll just say this. Some paths aren't meant to be walked, Mr. Drake. The way he said it wasn't casual. It came across as a warning. And yet Maggie couldn't stop herself from glancing up again at that path and the darkness shining within it. Is this the entrance to the Black Pass? Yes, it is. The woods had grown quieter as they walked, their footsteps muffled in the pine needles scattered across the trail. Maggie's sweater clung to her arms. The dampness in the air had thickened, and the swell of wet earth hung heavy. Overhead, the clouds had rolled in, even thicker, dense, bruised, and menacing. The last pale thread of sun they glimpsed earlier at the Black Veil was gone, swallowed whole, as if it never existed. Light raindrops began to patter through the canopy, darkening the dust of the trail in uneven spots. Kat's laughter had drifted further ahead, broken now and then by the muffled cadence of her voice on the phone. Maggie slowed as another sign came into view. Keep out. The red paint had bled downward, streaking like old wounds reopened in the damp. I've had quite a few people in Cherry Hill tell me that nobody wants to talk about the Black Pass, Maggie said suddenly, her voice low and steady. She kept her eyes forward, though she could feel Dax's gaze heavy on her, or the children disappearing. Dax's boots crunched behind her. He was taller than she realized. When she finally glanced up, his shadows seemed darker against the gathering storm. She drew a breath and let the words tumble before she could stop them. I was there a couple mornings ago when that little girl disappeared. I think her name was Olivia. I believe that's what her name was. He didn't answer. The silence was thicker than the clouds pressing down. The trail bent sharply to the left, and there it was. A tree. Ancient. Gnarled. Its bark slickened by the first damp of rain. Nailed into its trunk were dozens of wooden boards, each one carved or painted with the name. Some were faded, blurred by weather. Others were stark and fresh, the paint still bright against the dark bark. Maggie stepped closer, her breath shallow, rain speckling her hair, and she froze. The boards had names. Mark, Melanie, Debbie, Kayla, Maury, Stephen, Emma, John, Patrice, Kathy, Livy, her throat closed. Oh my God. These are the names of the children that have disappeared here, isn't it? Dax's boots thudded softly behind her. His voice came low and firm, almost swallowed by the distant rumble of thunder. Like I said, Miss Drake, some paths aren't meant to be walked. A rustle of movement snapped her head around. Kat had reappeared, tucking her phone away, a careless grin tugging her mouth. What? She asked when Dax's glare found her. You're going to be working more hours at that diner, he said sharply. If you've got time to sneak calls to Cade, then you've got time for more shifts. Kat rolled her eyes and darted ahead, muttering something under her breath. Tell me, who are those names? What are they? It's the children. It's the children who disappear in the dark past, isn't it? I think we should go on. The rain's going to pick up here in a minute. Why won't you answer my question? Mr. Drake, let it go. The sky crackled faintly with distant thunder. It's starting to get dark, Dax said, though it was only mid-afternoon. Let's turn back. Maggie's pulse quickened as they retraced their steps, passing one sign after another. Danger. Proceed at your own risk. You've been warned. The storm pressed down, making the forest darker, heavier, every shadow deeper. And she felt it. The eyes. Somewhere behind the trees, just out of reach, her hand instinctively went to the medallion at her chest. It was hot again, pulsing faintly as if it knew. Dax's gaze caught on the glint of silver around her neck. That's a beautiful piece, he said quietly. Looks very old. Maggie swallowed. It is. It was my mother's. Neither said more. The parking lot appeared at last, slick patches already forming in the gravel as the rain picked up. Dax unlocked the SUV, Kat bounding inside as if the storm didn't matter. He turned back once, searching Maggie's face. Would you like to grab a bite to eat? His tone was casual, almost hopeful. Maggie forced a smile, but she felt sick to her stomach. Though her mind was still at the tree, her fingertips still tingling from the names. No, I think I'll just go home. All right, he said softly, not pressing. Kat leaned across the seat, beaming. Maybe we could do it again sometime? Sure, Maggie said automatically, her voice far away. Dax kept driving. Maggie remembered the path. That tree. Those names weren't just a warning. They were a ledger. There was proof that children were stolen in the Black Pass, and it was connected to that tree. All those names. She hadn't even been able to look up and see all of them. She was already planning her return. She knew where the path split, where the warning signs began, where the gnarled tree stood sentinel at the forest mouth. She would go back, and this time she'd bring pen and paper. Every name on that tree would be written down. The road bent low out of the mountains, the SUV's tires grinding softly over gravel before merging onto a thicker blacktop that wound through a stretch of pasture. The clouds still hung like lead above them, bruised and swollen. Citrine, get down. But the windshield wipers had slowed, leaving streaks of water across the glass. Maggie leaned into the passenger seat, watching the land slide by. Her mind was still wrapped around that tree. The children's names carved into rough boards knelt like epitaphs into its bark. She could feel them pressing against her memory like phantom hands. Mark, Patricia, Stephen, James. Then something broke through the blur. Wait, Maggie whispered, her hand shooting up toward the window. Wait, stop! Dak's grip tightened on the wheel, but he didn't slow. He flicked his eyes toward her, then back at the road. What is it? Back the car up. I want to see what that was. Dak's grip tightened on the wheel. He put his SUV into reverse. What are we doing, Dad? Maggie saw something. He flicked his eyes toward her, then back at the road. There, she said sharply, her finger pointing to the left. Nestled back from the road, half hidden by the arms of two sagging oak trees, was an old white clapboard farmhouse. The paint peeled in strips, revealing gray boards beneath. The roof sagged under the years. A single pickup truck sat parked at an angle in the patchy front yard, its paint dulled and flaked with rust. But it wasn't the house that stopped Maggie's breath. The yard was covered. A small mountain of flowers, bouquets both fresh and wilted, tangled together in haphazard piles. There was a sign that said, "We will miss you." Teddy bears slumped in the wet grass, their fur damp from the drizzle. Dolls with wide staring eyes, chucks, balls, ribbons, the kind of offerings you left when words had failed. Oh my God, Maggie whispered, her chest tightening. Her breast sagged in her throat. That's where she lived. She then saw a picture of a young blonde girl of 5 or 6, and words written across the top. We will miss you, Olivia. Mommy and Daddy love you. Her voice was hushed, reverent, and horrified all at once. Dax kept his eyes forward, though his jaw clenched visibly. Yeah, that was Olivia's home. Maggie pressed her hand to the glass as if she could reach the scene, her heart hammering. The storm-dark skies seemed to dip lower above the old house, and for one disorienting second, her vision shifted. She saw her. A little girl in a pink t-shirt and blue overalls, playing with a doll in the front yard. And then, like a film strip snapping, darkness swirled. A shadow swept down, invisible and yet undeniable, and the girl was plucked up, ripped away. 1 second she was there, and the next she was gone, snatched into nothing. Maggie gasped, the fingernails scraping against the window. Another image slipped into her mind then. Valerie, the little girl 35 years ago, riding her bike down the street, disappearing. The only thing left, a pink ribbon in a muddy puddle. Maggie shivered violently. Her skin erupted in goose flesh, her chest tight with cold. Her voice cracked. Are you all right, Miss Drake? I don't know. I just have a really bad headache. Beside her, Dax didn't slow. He didn't look at her. His voice was quiet and final. The voice of a man who'd said too much before and vowed never to open it again. Yeah, that's where Olivia lived. Does her parents still live there? Yeah. The SUV rumbled forward the yard, slipping from view, leaving Maggie's heart pounding in the hollow of her throat. But she knew she would never forget that house. She would never forget all the names on that tree. She had 2 places to visit. And as the rain began again in steady sheets against the windshield, Maggie realized her nightmare hadn't been just a dream. It was memory. Memory of a place she'd never been. Until now. The first place she would visit would be Olivia's home. And that is the reading of Cherry Hill tonight. So what are you thinking? Tonight was a power-packed night. A power-packed night. So glad that y'all enjoyed it. I hope it kept you on the edge of your seat like it did when I was writing it. And I'm going to tell you, the tree with the names of the children on there was like a wow moment for me. Like I got like serious cold chills. Like I'm not even kidding. And seeing the house where Olivia was, with the memorial, the flowers, the lights, everything out there in the yard. So it's opening up. So glad you liked it. What are you thinking about Maggie Drake? What are you thinking about Miss Maggie? So, quite a bit has been introduced in this chapter, in this reading tonight. You have Dax, Kat, his daughter. You have this entrance to the Black Pass. Maggie knows where it is now. What Chloe told her after the circle, basically telling her that she's not from a good line, that she's from a bad line. So this story is just building and building and building and building. She did, X. I think the next place that she'll have to go is to the apocryphy room. She's gonna have to read. She's gonna have to read and start really learning about her mother, Aileen. You think she will use her powers for good? We shall see. So I remember when I first introduced Chloe, there were some that said she's a witch. There were some that said she's a psychic. She's a bit of both. Yes, yeah. Maggie comes from a bad line of witches. Bad. Ooh. All right, so hopefully everyone really enjoyed it. Next Sunday night, the story will continue. Um, am I bad? What did you think about those three witches? Aileen, Rowena, and Karis. What did you think about them? What did you think about them? Because um, let me see something here. Just practicing. Um, that's not too bad. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it. Everyone, all my Grims. All right, so tomorrow night is Dark Fairy Tale Night. Thank you, Julie, for posting that. And it's going to be a good one. I hope that everyone is enjoying the new vibe. I am really liking it. Um, it's so much bigger, so much nicer, so much cooler. I have room to move around. I can get up and tell a story if I want. Tonight I was overly tired because working all weekend on this space, but I really enjoyed it in the room. All right, everyone. I love you all. I'm going to work on bringing back the creepy ending. I'm trying to think how to do that. This is a big space. So I'm just going to start trying to work with it and see what I can do to make it creepy as possible. Love you, love you, love you. You're welcome. Yeah, so tomorrow night, Dark Fairy Tales. I'll see you at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. Go off. Bye.